If you would, please take a minute to record your attendance on one of the attendance cards. If you are a first-time visitor and feel comfortable doing so, please record your attendance on the yellow attendance cards. Then if you would like to share a prayer request, we invite you to write the request on the back of the attendance card and place it in the offering tray as it is passed later in the service. May the Lord bless and fill our lives this morning. Let us now prepare our hearts for worship. Praise be to God for the blessings of his love. Praise be to Jesus for the ways in which he reveals God to us. Praise be to the Holy Spirit for guidance and inspiration. Through the power of the Holy Spirit, God fills our souls with grace and wisdom. It is from grace that we have hope. It is from this wisdom that we know God's love. It is from the living God that we find life and forgiveness. Praise be to God.
Let's join in singing. We begin with Holy, 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 number 68.
Holy,
4 of 508, and as a short interlude, and then we sing verses 1 and 2 of 509.
Scripture for this morning comes from Romans 5, 1 through 5. Therefore, since we are justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have obtained access to this grace in which we stand, and we boast in our hope of sharing in the glory of God. And not only that, but we also boast in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and the character produces hope. And the hope does not disappoint us, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that has been given to us. May the Lord bless this word for our spiritual growth.
Happy Father's Day. In a bit, during this sermon, I would like to hear something about your father. Some memory about your father that you would like the world to hear. It's not mandatory, you're not required to do it. But I think a lot of what we do as adults was given to us by a father figure, a biological father or a father figure, a grandfather. And I think a lot of that gets just kind of taken for granted. But I want to talk about the text for a bit too, because in this text, a couple of things that I really want to share with you. Last week I told you that I did not think that the text that we heard, the farewell address from Jesus to his disciples, was written to us. I still don't think it was. And when Jesus talks about all the things he was giving to those disciples, he was not talking to us, he was talking to those disciples. And I remain, I still think that. But if you listen to Paul today, he makes reference to those same gifts given to us, not to the disciples alone, but to us as well. And that is where we can claim the Holy Spirit. That's where we can claim our connection, our adopted connection with God. But then he starts talking about suffering. And I think suffering is way overrated, personally, and I try to avoid as much of it as possible. Having said that, I want to be very careful here. Thought about this a lot lately. We are so profoundly blessed in our time and place in which we live that for us to claim suffering as Paul did is just wrong. When Paul talks about suffering, Paul suffered. He's writing from prison as he's writing this letter. He wasn't just in prison once or twice. He was in prison pretty regularly. He didn't just go sit in prison. He was interrogated. He was beat. This was a Roman citizen of status who was treated terribly. Eventually was killed. And this letter, written just a couple of years toward the end of his life, just a couple of years before he was executed, he remains faithful in his statements, and he's really, if we could restate the thing, because boasting is, people listen to that and they think, boasting? Boasting? Seriously? But it doesn't translate well. So let's look at it a little differently. What if we said, you cannot avoid difficult times in life? You can't do it. But when they happen, you have a decision to make on how you're going to deal with it. What are you going to do when difficult things happen? How are you going to handle it personally? What are you going to do with it? And are you going to blame God? A lot of people do. And others, they're going to use it to further their kingdom, to further the work, to increase their faith. I did a funeral yesterday for a woman who died down in Phoenix, and she had not been in this area for a very long time. And so they didn't have a whole lot of family or friends here, but quite a few people gathered from her extended family. And as I interacted with them, most of the conversations that I had preparing for the service was with the son down in Phoenix, or South Carolina, I'm sorry. And there's a daughter lives in town and one in South Missouri. The two girls have no background in church, and they would be the very first to tell you that, in fact, the words they use is, we don't know God. That's what they said. We don't know God. But here's what happened. They were quite concerned that as we prepared this service for their mother, that she was treated with respect, that she was honored, that God claimed her. But they didn't know how to go about doing that because, in their words, they didn't know God. The son, very involved in his church, had a completely different attitude, completely different perspective, and a completely different approach. And yesterday when we did the service, you could see the difference in their faith walks and their life experiences based on how they felt about the service. Here is the son who has lost his mother. Now she was in her 70s, and they were adult men and women. He's sad. He's lost his mom. But he's also joyful for her. And he's confident in her. He's confident in the relationship with God. He's confident in what she has achieved and where she's at. And he's not a bit worried about her. He just misses her. It's the normal grief that you would expect. But the daughters, they're broken up. They're in a really bad place. Because they don't have those experiences. They don't have that background. They don't have that confidence. And they didn't know what to do. Well, that's where we get to come in, by the way, as church. And hopefully we can help with that a bit. But that's what Paul's talking about is when as we go through life and we have this relationship with God, we take our relationship with God, and when we don't even realize it, but moment by moment by moment, everything that we go through builds a foundation for us that when times get difficult, we have the confidence that God is with us. You remember when you were, think about your kids or your grandkids. We may not be able to think back that far to what we did, but when everything was a big deal, I mean, good Lord, we ran out of milk and the world's coming to an end, right? Oh my gosh, we have no Kool-Aid. The world's coming to an end. Well, we know as adults, it's not that big deal. What we find, at least what I found, I think you have too, is as we go through life, there aren't that many things that are that big a deal. Fewer and fewer and fewer. The older I get, the fewer big deals happen because I realize, it's a been there, done that kind of thing. So you'll be okay. It'll be all right. Well, that's what Paul's talking about. When he talks about boasting about it, he's really talking about living out the experiences. He's talking about having the confidence to say, we've been there, we've done that, we know what it's about, and it'll be okay in the end. One of my very favorite statements is, it'll be okay in the end. If it isn't okay, it isn't the end. And that's true. It will be okay in the end. But in between, we have to decide, as people of faith, we have to decide what are we going to do with the difficult times. And I saw it yesterday. I saw a man of faith say, my mother got ill, she died, she's with God, I miss her, but everything's good. I saw women who said, why did God take her? Why did God take my mom? That's a completely different perspective. Both of them based on faith, but different places in the faith. And so as we journey through our journey, we have two things to do. We have to decide how are we going to handle that, and then how are we going to share it with people that we encounter. And so let me just stop with the dads in a second, but let me just say that when we want to help someone with their faith walk, don't ever take something away and they have nothing to replace it with, right? So when someone says to me, and I've had this happen a number of times, particularly with younger people who've died, why did God do this? All I can say is, I don't believe God did. I'll just leave it at that. Because I don't want to take it away, I don't want to take whatever they've got away from them, but I also don't want them to think that God is vindictive or God is killing people. That doesn't work for me, right? But your ministry of presence, and this is the other thing that I saw that was amazing. At the end of the conversation, both times with the daughters, they're like, talk to our brother. He's our family representative. Talk to our brother. He knows what to do. And I told him, I said, Chris, your sisters have put all kind of faith in your faith. They admire your faith. They look to your faith. They don't understand your faith. But they recognize it and they appreciate it. And right now, in this difficult time, they're counting on it. So that's the other thing that you need to keep in mind. You might not even realize this, but out in your circle of friends, in your circle of employee friends, in the world in which you move, and in fact the world in which our entire community moves, we serve a purpose that we don't see, of providing that base of faith and security. And so, as Paul boasts, I'm not sure I can say we boast, but as Paul had confidence, we have confidence. As Paul went through life, I will not say that I suffered as Paul did. I have not. And hopefully I will not. And hopefully you will not. But difficult times will happen. And how we deal with it determines how we look at God and how we look at the world. And I'll close with this. My personal theology is this. Everything good that happens, God did for me. Everything bad that happens just happened. God didn't do it at all. And I've had several people tell me that makes no sense. And I have the same comment to them every time. Too bad. That's my theology. Memories of fathers. Memories of dads. I'm going to give you a second. I'll share one with you to start with, and then I want you to do that. This is actually my grandfather. My grandfather, my mother's dad, We called him Pop. He was he was a very good friend of mine. And it was a joy. I spent as much time with him as I could. He was a hog farmer. I know all about hogs. And I would go down and spend the time on the farm with him, feeding the hogs and doing whatever we had to do with the hogs, and you really don't want to know about most of it. But I remember times of sitting on the back of his farm truck and him telling me the things that he thought I should need to know as an adult. And he died when I was a sophomore in high school. No, that was my other grandfather. He died when I was about 20. But I remember 8th grade in particular. There was something pivotal about that, I suppose. But I remember sitting on the back of his old truck, his old flatbed truck in the summer, after we had fed all the livestock, and before we went back to the house, and he would tell me, he would, like, I wouldn't know it, but when we'd be out feeding, he had picked up a weed. Now, I don't know where he put it, when I kept it, but we're sitting on the back of the truck, and he takes this weed. And he goes, "You see this?" I'm like, "Yeah." Well, he begins to tell me, "This is local." Right? You need to make sure there's none of this in your livestock pastures, because if the animals eat this, they'll get sick. Right? Now, I could tell you, I don't know what that weed is, but I could identify it today. And I don't have livestock. Right? But it was just time after time that I found that this man was so close with this, and then I want to hear from you guys. So I wrote a paper about him in seminary, about someone who had been important in my spiritual journey. When I got done, I realized I never saw Pop in church, not one time. Never. Now, his wife, my grandmother, played the piano at 2 different churches on Sunday morning. And I got churched a lot down there, Baptist and Methodist both. So Mom was gone. I called Dad and said, "Dad, I wrote this paper on Pop, but I just realized when I got done, I never saw him in church. I'm going to have to rewrite this paper." And Dad started laughing, and he goes, "You don't remember what your Pop said about church?" I said, "No." He said, "Pop said if you could go to church and remain a Christian, you had done something." And yet, I will tell you, in my opinion, one of the finest Christians I will know. Memories of dads.
I'm looking at the bulletin on the front page here. I'm thinking of my dad and what he's taught me through life. When I was 13, he bought me a little British sports car so we could restore it together. As we went along with the restoration process, we were rolling around the garage one day, and I managed to run over my foot with car. And so that was suffering. He said, "You shouldn't do that. It was a life lesson learned." Later on that day, as we were bleeding the brake system, he was pumping the brakes and I was releasing the fluid, and I released the fluid too soon, and I got fluid in my eye. And once again, Dad said, "You shouldn't do that." More suffering, but there was endurance coming along with this. I was learning. We got the vehicle ready to prep, and so we were going to take it for a test drive around the street. And this car is a 1959 TR3. It's got low-cut doors, and you open the door from the outside. So Dad was going to drive, and so he gets in the car, and he shuts the door, and he shuts his thumb in the door. And he can't reach the door anymore. I'm sitting beside him. He says, "My thumb's in the door." I said, "Suffering."
You said you shouldn't do that, Dad.
Endure the pain. You shouldn't do that. So it's those types of life lessons that I've learned from my dad that's developed the character that we both share.
How is your dad?
He's doing great.
Tell him hi for me.
Okay, well.
I have a question for you before we go any further. Could everyone hear that? All right, we need to get a mic. If they can't hear you, we're going to need a mic. All right, we're going to have a mic here in a second. So who's going to share us? Okay, hold on one second. Let's get a mic for you, though.
Oh, I can talk that.
No, if you can't hear him, they aren't going to hear you.
I'll talk to him. I can talk that.
Well, we're recording. They won't hear it off it either. All right. You know which one that is? we'll get a mic ready, but come on up and use the pulpit mic in the meantime. Hey, I have to do it every Sunday. You can do it occasionally.
I'll sit with you, so.
All right, are you going next?
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, I'm just going out to sit with her.
Well, you would. You're an elder.
I think that.
Just right there.
Okay, most of you know my daddy was Dana Newell, who was born from Man World. One of the things is, my dad wore a size 14 or 15 size shoe. And as a young girl, I grew up and I had these huge feet, and you couldn't buy shoes for a young girl. One of the things I was always told by him and my mom, it takes a bigger foundation for a church than it does an outhouse. So, I go somewhere, and we talk about it. Hey, bigger foundation for a church than an outhouse. But I told the bean story of Mom, but this is the turtle story on Dad. We found a little snapping turtle, kept him in a box, giving him lettuce and water, and I just love animals. I still take pictures and send to my grandkids, look at the frog I found in the backyard, look at the turtle. Well, he goes in the house and he says, do not put your hand in there and touch that turtle. Keep your hand away from the turtle. Okay, Dad. Dad goes in the house, stick my thumb in, the turtle latches on. I'm out there screaming bloody murder when he comes and has to squeeze the turtle. I don't know if it died or not, but it could have very well. So life lessons, listen to your parents. There are times in life that I should have gone back and reflected on that story, because if your parents have your best interest in heart. And I tell these stories to my grandkids. But on the hindsight, when I was in Hawaii and I swam into a cave, there was a sea turtle this big. I swam right back in.
It's interesting, what all of us, I think, are saying a few things about reprimands that we receive from our